Fear is fuel for me. If you embrace it, it keeps you safe and it allows you to perform more. Your performance will without a doubt increase in the safest manner if you embrace fear. You've got to harness that fear and use it as a tool and then just bust through whatever you face. I'm Clint Emerson. I'm a retired Navy SEAL. I write books. I've recently been in a TV show, but most of the time I'm doing crisis management for Fortune 500, providing safety, skills, and survival to anyone who wants to listen or learn. I grew up in Saudi Arabia, so one of the most extreme, Muslim states in the world at the time. That was during the 80s. And so from the second grade all the way to high school, I spent my time there. For the most part, I didn't like it, but growing up there played a little bit of a part on me joining the military and serving my country. Interestingly enough, on one of our trips back to the States, we had a layover in Frankfurt, Germany. So the first thing for me as a kid was like, I want a Coke. And there was a guy sitting at one of the bars, and I went straight to that bar to get a Coke, right? And I'm this curious little 10-year-old or whatever age I was, and the guy sitting at the bar had these tattoos. He was wearing like a black collared shirt. And I said, hey, what do you do for a living? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, those tattoos, what do those tattoos mean? And he's like, well, that's a trident. I'm like, what's a trident? He's like, it's a symbol for a military unit. Eventually, he told me about Navy SEALs and underwater demolition teams. And I was like, well, what do you guys do? He goes on to tell me a story. He's like, well, you remember when we bombed Libya? I'm like, yeah, I do remember. He's like, well, we went in the middle of the night and we took out the anti-aircraft guns and the guys that were, supporting them so that those B-111s could come in nice and low, drop bombs and pull out without getting shot out of the sky. So at that point I was like, I'll be a Navy SEAL. And once I heard that story, I was doing everything I could to figure out how I could start my own little training system before I even knew what the hell the training consisted of, right? And then I was like, okay, he mentioned underwater demolition stuff. So when I hit 12 years old, I did every scuba diving course I could at the earliest age possible. My first open water dive was with my Boy Scout master, right? This guy takes us out to Korea Beach, which is the Persian Gulf. He's like, all right, we're just gonna go dive and just stay with me and we'll have a good time. And we were at a place called Tyre Reef. And if you've ever paid attention to vehicles that operate in the desert, when you're working on oil refineries and stuff, the tires on these vehicles are the size of this room, okay? And so there is a reef, man-made reef built of all these huge desert operation vehicles, tires, right? And so super cool. Anyway, I hear all about it and this is my first time. And there's a pier and you walk to that end of that pier and you basically jump in, go down to the bottom, there's a rope that guides you and you just go along the bottom and eventually you end up at Tyre Reef, okay? Well, the day we went, we walk out to the end of the pier and there's nothing but a sea and swarm of jellyfish. And my scoutmaster, an adult, I'm a kid, he's like, don't worry about it. Just, we'll go ahead and we'll just jump right through them and go straight to the bottom. I'll meet you down there. And he just leaves. And I'm kind of like, what the fuck just happened, right? So I'm like, all right, so, hold on, step off into these jellyfish. And then of course, as I go to the bottom, I'm feeling the stings around my face, anywhere skin's exposed. But once you get to the bottom and you're in cold water, you don't even feel it anymore. So it wasn't as big a deal as it looked. But, talk about facing fear and not having time to even think about it. It was pretty interesting. So now we get to the bottom, I see him, and then he's like, all right, let's go. Grabs a line, I'm behind him. All I see is his fins. He's kicking up, sand off the bottom, just following the dust trail, pull along, and we get there, and it's just this magnificent, museum of tires. Some of them are upright, some of them are down on their sides, some of them are stacked. And then we start kind of wandering around, checking stuff out. I've got hot dogs. I'm feeding these massive angelfish and all of these different fish. And before you know it, he's gone. I don't know where this dude is, right? He's an adult. He's not even near me. And I'm kind of searching visually at first. And then eventually I start kind of actually going out and scouting around all these tires, like, okay. Then I look up and I'm looking for bubbles, right? You can look, it was crystal clear, and I saw like no bubbles anywhere coming up, right? So I'm like, man, this guy's either gone or dead or whatever happened, right? And so I started getting nervous. And at this point, I'm circling the tire reef and I can't find the rope. So I don't know which direction is home. And long story short, I end up, battling the decision-making process and go, all right, I guess I'll just go to the surface and figure out which way is home. So I surface, right? And I look and I can barely see land. Kicking as hard as I can to get my chest out of the water to get enough height, and I can see, because it's real choppy up on the surface. It was a windy day. And so I could go back down and hope that I go the right direction, or I could just turtle back or turtle kick all the way in. So that's what I decided to do, because I didn't want to lose sight of home, right? And I turtle kick my way back, get to shore, basically get spit out by the surf zone onto the beach, tumble in, covered in sand, my mask is sideways, my regulator's done, and I see this guy sitting at the park bench just down the beach. I'm like, what happened to you never leave your dive buddy, never leave your swim buddy, you never do that. And this guy made me feel like I was crazy for actually being concerned about that. But it was those experiences that then I was like, I did it. I was fine, and I was by myself and got through it, and I'm alive, so no big deal. And I just kind of brushed it off myself and moved on. But it was an interesting first experience, diving. I continued to just chase down any training or any education I could to hopefully make myself better or more qualified to be a SEAL later on in life. That dream just kind of stuck and carried on through high school, college, and eventually I was like, all right, I got to go, scratch this itch, sign the dotted line, join the US Navy, and off I went. Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training, or BUDS for short, is the selection process for Navy SEALs. And it is literally just 6 months of getting your ass kicked, being kept cold, wet, and sandy, and never really having an opportunity to rest. And the focus is first very much physical, which ends up turning into a mental game. But ultimately, it is 6 months of hell to see if you can endure what gets thrown at you, see if you're mentally strong enough to deal with, crisis and complicated scenarios, and then and see if you're just see if you're good enough to be a part of that brotherhood. BUDS for me was a challenge every single day, but not because of a fitness or capability. It was mainly because anticipation and anxiety, right? You wake up every morning not knowing what that day has in store. And sometimes that can get the best of you, and that's where people end up just quitting. I think for me, where I had the most anxiety was when it was pull comp, which is a week of underwater stress tests, right? And I think it was exacerbated because of having that childhood experience of borderline lost at sea, without a swim buddy, and not knowing if I was going to make it home alive, right? And so when that moment came, when I'm underwater, you're on these old Jacques Cousteau rigs, twin 180s on your back, double hose regulator, old school systems. And they do that on purpose because you can pull that out and tie these big whammy knots in the hoses while you're going back and forth along the bottom, right? And while you're going back and forth, you don't know when the attack is coming. but it's coming. And you just keep going back and forth. The instructors are up there circling like sharks, and they're waiting for the right time. And that right time for them is when you exhale and all those bubbles come out. Then those guys come down and they literally beat you underwater, take away your air immediately, pull your mask off your face, tie the hose in a knot, loosen your shoulder straps, chest strap, waist strap, take your weight belt off. It falls immediately onto the bottom of the combat training tank, toss you around, slap you in the head, and then now you have to start solving your problems in a orderly fashion. Because if you get out of order, you fail. So you have no air, and now you have to start putting everything on in a specific order, right? So the first thing you do is get your weight belt. You lay it across the back of your calves so that it keeps you on the bottom. Then you try to find your mask. You get that on, and you're gonna have to clear your mask. But you have no air to clear your mask because you push on the front of your mask, right? Which opens up and loosens the seal around your nose, and you blow out your nose, the bubbles replace the water, and now you can see, right? But wait, you can't do that yet. So you need air first. So then you've got your mask and you're getting everything, you're kind of collecting it up to include your fins. And now you've got to take your rig, put it on over, put your arms through the straps, get your chest strap done. You've untied a knot that's in your rig, of course. You get air. Now you can clear your mask, put your fins on. Anyway, you go through the whole process, and then you just start going back and forth across the bottom again. And meanwhile, they're up there circling like sharks, and then they wait until you exhale again, and they come down and do it again. And they do it to you over and over and over again to see if you're gonna quit, to see if you'll bolt to the surface. Because if you take off to the surface, that's considered quitting, right? So the anxiety for that moment to get in the water and start that test was overwhelming for me, because I was like, oh my God, I was the part of, that experience when you're a kid to that point. Now I'm an adult, young adult, and I've got to just get through this. And then once I got down there and got going, it just kind of all went away. The anxiety went away. You kind of surrender to them. As soon as you get that first hit in the head, you just kind of go limp, and you let them do whatever they want to you. And then you just remember the process. Okay, put this on first, do that second, do that third, and just get through it calmly. At least pretend to be calm, even though inside you're like, I want air, right? And then do it again, and before you know it, it's over, and they say, you passed. You're like, thank God. But that's just one day in BUD/S, right? And every guy has a different day where their anxiety is a little higher than others. And it just really depends on your own personal strengths and weaknesses and vulnerabilities, because BUD/S will certainly find your vulnerability and force you to face it. And then when you face it, it can either take advantage of you or you can take advantage of it. And that's really what it boils down to. For me, graduating BUD/S, there was no like, haha, look at me. I still had a multi-year path to go before I was actually gonna put on the symbol that represents Navy SEAL. So when I graduated BUD/S, I knew, well, this is just the beginning. I have a whole lot of shit I gotta do. Because back then, your platoon, right? You get put into a platoon, they're all wearing tridents, but you're not. And you're hanging out for about a year with these guys. And these guys are always watching you, judging you, ensuring that your character and your personality matches what the community is looking for. And so when the day comes that they say, hey, stand up against that wall. So you put your back up against the wall. They all get in single file line right in front of you. And the first guy has this trident in his hand. It's got 3 big, nasty, nail-like prongs on the back of it. And he sets it right on your chest, and then he rears back and he tacks it straight in, and those 3 nails go into your chest. And then the next guy in line knocks it in. And then the next guy decides, well, I'm gonna use a palm because that hurts more. And he smacks it in, and the next guy, and then the next guy. And once all 16 of your newfound brothers smash that thing into your chest, afterwards, yeah, you're happy, you're proud, not because of the trident, but because, hey, these guys said I can, join their team. So it was an awesome moment. Fast forward, I end up at SEAL Team 3. SEAL Team 3 did nothing but operations in the Middle East. So I start talking to some of the old guys and saying, hey, which guys went and did that whole Libya mission? Taking out Air Command. Never happened. I'm like, it must have been that real secret command. So when I ended up at the real secret command, SEAL Team 6, I went around and asked some of the old guys, hey, did you guys take out any anti-aircraft guns in Libya? And they're all like, no, that never happened. So my entire passion, dream, and drive, and that story is what drove me down being a Navy SEAL, but the odds are that guy was 100% a fraud. But anyway, I ended up doing it because I thought it was cool. I thought, a lot of the operations we conduct are for the greater good of the world we live in. That feeling of operating for the greater good is something that doesn't go away. So for me, transitioning out, I just created my own greater good, and that is providing, safety, security, and survival skills to both organizations and individuals. So I think you have to create your own mission when you don't have a greater one to work for anymore.
I just want to say a massive thank you to Clint Emerson, who shared his time with us and shared his life story essentially with us, so you guys can hear his story, see his growth, and learn lessons that Clint has learned and transfer them into your own life. If you enjoyed the video, please consider supporting us at Mulliganbrothers.com. The link is down below. It basically means we can take our whole film crew and fly all around the world to be able to do this. There is also now, I think, a super thanks and a join button if you want to become a member of the channel. And also, go show some love to Clint as well. He has some amazing resources. Go to his Instagram, all linked down below. And if you want to see what I get up to on a day-to-day basis, it's at Jordan Mulligan Brother on Instagram. Have a blessed and productive day. Go share this and go inspire some change. Peace.